What's up, everybody? I am back, and I am deep in the woods of Tell's Canyon, Lake Tahoe, California. Pretty far from the lake, kind of deep in the backcountry, but I am sitting next to an original Boeing B17 bomber from World War II. It crashed here on a stormy November night in 1941, and I have been searching for this plane for about 2 years now. It is on a completely unmarked trail. It's a National Historic Site, so they do a really good job of trying to keep it out of the general public view, keep poachers away from it and stuff like that. But it's really awesome to finally find it, and I'll give you a little bit of history of the aircraft too. Before I do that, I'll give you a little bit of footage from 2 years ago of me wandering around in the woods like an idiot. I had read something online about a B-17 air crash that happened here Halloween night 1941, roughly 85 years ago. And it is considered a National Historic Site, but has been redacted from a lot of Google Maps and USGA maps and all that fun stuff because of graffiti, vandalism, people hauling big ass parts of planes out of here somehow. But I figured it would be a fun day trip to come try and find it. So after about like 100-mile drive into the forest, got about 4.5-mile hike or so, try and find the plane. I have a rough idea where I'm going. Mostly hoping not to be eaten by a mountain lion. I do have this tripod to beat it off with. Phrasing. And a dull pocket knife to stab it in the face with 2 or 3 times before it kills me. But assuming that doesn't happen, let's go see if we can find this plane. It's pretty muddy. So we're gonna take this trailhead, which I think is Tell's Basin, or it's just a dry riverbed that's going to lead me into the abyss. But I think this is the trail. And we're gonna see. Hopefully I don't die. It is really nice out here though. Very quiet. Nobody around. I do think I've found the right trail, or at least one of them. So we're on the right path. It is desolate back here. Like, look at the size of these pine cones. Look at that. That's crazy. So, after literally almost walking into Tell's Creek, we have decided that that is not the trail I'm looking for. Decided that this completely unmarked trail into nowhere is hopefully the trail I'm looking for, which, if I'm correct, I should only have to take a mile or so down, where it will intersect with another trail. And then after I take that one for half a mile or so, I should be able to find our B17 in all of this with any luck. And if not, I don't know, maybe we'll go fish at the creek or something. Of course, I never was quite able to find the correct trail. I did wander in the woods about as long as I could before I ran out of sunlight and had to head home. But today, I was a lot more prepared. I have GPS coordinates. It was still a little bit of a rough going, but I was finally able to find not only this main fuselage, but also the right wing section, which is, I don't know, a few hundred feet that way. So I get to be one of the few people who has found this wing. This is the wing section of the B-17. This is the first piece I found. This is sort of like, for me, like finding the Titanic. I'm hoping to find the rest of the wreck site within here, but it's taken me, I'm not kidding you, almost 2 years to find any piece of this plane. I've gone on trail, I've gone off trail. I've probably got a tick or two crawling through my leg hair, but I finally, after 2 years, have found a piece of this plane. Now, as I said, this is a 2-year journey in the making, and the reason it is so difficult to find this trail or to find any pieces of this wreck site is because people are stupid enough to hike into Lake Tahoe and try and abscond with what is basically only like a couple $100 of scrap aluminum, and in doing so, you're destroying a historic site. So try not to be stupid, people. If you do find the plane, it is a very cool piece of history, a very important piece of aviation history, and military history actually too. So try to leave things where you found them if you can. Now, of course, there is a story behind this wreckage. This aircraft was scheduled to undergo maintenance to have an engine replaced in Sacramento, California, and was on its way from the state of Utah when severe winter weather forced it to take a couple overnight stay in my current home base of Reno, Nevada. Now, while there, Lieutenant Leo Walker, who was in charge of the aircraft, and 8 other men, asked local pilots what they thought would be the best way for him to get over the pass to Sacramento. The local pilots gave him some directions, and they took off 2 days later, but unfortunately would run into severe winter weather over Lake Tahoe. Now, Lieutenant Walker would valiantly try and save the aircraft by lifting them up over the weather to 18,000 feet. He would tell all 8 of his men to prepare their parachutes, and as soon as they lifted over 18,000 feet, they unfortunately suffered a catastrophic tail failure and went into a spin. And miraculously, 8 of the 9 men, besides Lieutenant Walker himself, who unfortunately perished going down with the aircraft, were able to survive, and they did parachute down into snowy Lake Tahoe and make their way to safety. Now, when you look at this aircraft, you wouldn't think that this has been in here for 80 years, but like, this just goes to show you like how legit American engineering was back then. Like, this is all American Pittsburgh steel. I'll never not rep Pittsburgh. And you could tell it's Pittsburgh steel because it's been sitting in this harsh snowy woods for 80 years. And you would think in some spots of it, it just rolled out of the factory like the other day. I'm not really familiar with this aircraft. This was the nose. It had a glass dome on it for the gunners. It would have the engines, 2 engines on each side. So you can kind of see next to the American flag where the one engine was, and further down. Because you got like the exhaust system and all the funky cool stuff that connects into the plane. I think there was a gun turret dome right here. I'm not 100% sure, but from what my research was showing me in the pictures, it looked like a gun dome. And then I think from what I'm seeing further along here, there was also a gun dome over here. Not with somebody in it, but maybe just like a turret on the side. Again, sort of not a military aircraft expert, so please feel free to correct me. Try not to be too harsh on me. I don't mean to be disrespectful by, describing this aircraft, but that's my best guess from what I could see here. Gun dome there. I know it had a nose dome and then the cockpit on top, and I think another dome behind the cockpit. The coolest thing, I think, in my opinion, that you wouldn't notice unless you went over here, is this still has the original paint from the 1940s. It's been 80 years in the woods. This paint is still sticking to this fuselage after all that time. What is this? Again, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I'm assuming the old U.S. Army symbol. I've noticed that the Air Force, because the Air Force didn't exist yet. Is that or the Marines? Either way, I mean, look at that. That's crazy. I'm sure it's full of lead. I wouldn't breathe it in or anything like that, but it's pretty incredible that this thing has lasted the way it has for this long. It's really remarkable. Now, one of the cooler things to me is that after all this time, of course it's been like 80 years, that all these trees have grown back around to surround the crash site. But you have to imagine at some point in the past, like all of this was like slashed, sort of like this, slashed down by this crash. And at the time it happened, there was probably very little to almost like no established trails to get back to this wreck. I can only imagine like what or how those dudes had to backpack their way through, you know, Donner Pass in the winter or close to it to find their way back to safety. It's pretty crazy. I encourage everyone watching this to come check out this wreck site if you can find it. It's not impossible, but you gotta do a little bit of research. I highly suggest do not just show up here. Well, not the crash site, but just do not show up to Lake Tahoe and just wander into the abyss like I did the first time. It was not a super good idea. If you look hard enough, you can find GPS coordinates and you can find your way back here. Like I said, it is a historic site. Try not to wreck up the place. Try to be respectful, but I highly encourage everyone to come check it out. This is about as cool as it gets in terms of aviation history, in terms of military history. A lot of this stuff you either can't find, has been carried out already, or like is like fenced off by the government. This is one of the few crashes that you could actually go find after 80 years, a large portion of everything that's left, and enjoy the history for yourself. So again, I encourage everyone to come back here, give it a shot, be respectful, and thanks for watching. See you later.